I amuse you?
Everybody's funny. Hi.
Yeah, I guess I am.
Welcome back. Are you really?
No, you remember
You
that?
gotta be careful. The DA's sitting right over here next to
You remember that great song Dean Friedman did called Ariel? It was his one-hit
Yes.
wonder about a date with a girl he met.
Yes.
And he talks about driving over to her house, and he knocks on the door, and I said hi, and she said, "Yeah, I guess I am."
I guess I am.
Yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah, you're right, buddy.
Uh-huh.
Hey, welcome into Wednesday morning. It's an absolutely beautiful day in the state capital of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
It is a beautiful day.
And,
It's a wonderful day.
We are going to use this podcast time to discuss the upcoming race for the mayor-president of East Baton Rouge Parish.
We already know that Mayor Broom is going to seek re-election.
She is in.
There are two announced challengers, both from the Metro Council, both people who are well known in the community. Councilman Matt Watson and Councilwoman Tara Wicker have both announced. No, that's fine, just the way you got it.
Beautiful.
They have both announced, and we're going to talk to them today. Matt Watson now joins us. Morning, Matt. How are you?
Good morning.
Matt, I tell you what I'm going to ask you to do is tilt that chair just about 45 degrees.
Yeah, we want to see your face.
So that camera can get a good look at that stunning mug.
There you go. Now you can swing the mic
there we
swing the mic in front of you. There we are. And
Camera-
Kevin, you want to put a
camera
little
loves you,
tension on
man.
this and bring it up a little bit?
Yeah, let's
And we're going to adjust.
It's got you, but
no, not that
keep
one.
talking, I got
we
you.
forgot how tall Matt was. Matt is tall.
I'm 6'1".
He's a tall guy.
I can't make it in the NBA. That's
compared
for
to
sure.
us, that's
Yeah.
really tall.
Yeah, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it there either. Trust
How's
me.
the air up there, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm not going to. Well, you are finishing out your first term on the Metro Council
Correct. As the elected council person.
as the elected council person. That's right, because you did finish an unexpired term, right?
No.
No.
I worked for the previous council person.
I did all the work.
In,
Yeah.
in a much expanded role than what is seen as a traditional legislative aide. Not to say that the other legislative aides don't do an absolute mountain of work, but the things that I did were a little closer to the activities of a council person. Not voting or anything to that matter, but speaking with the parish attorney's office, the planning commission, and really getting into the weeds on a lot of this stuff and doing conflict resolution with neighborhoods and talking to HOAs and things of that nature.
So being elbow deep in city parish business is nothing you're new at.
Not at all.
Well, you have been very active. I think that's the proper term on the council. You don't just sit there throughout an entire meeting with your hands in your lap. You have
Exactly.
been very active. There are some people that are greatly appreciative of that. There are some people, quite frankly, that you've kind of hacked off. But that's the nature of politics.
You know
I
what?
would think.
I think the people that I've hacked off, if they go out and start saying that they don't particularly care for me, I think it's going to win me more votes than take votes away.
You hear that, Kevin? You can stop bad-mouthing Matt now.
Stop it.
You know, you could probably get handily reelected in your district. You're not term limited.
Certainly.
So how did you come to the decision that this is your race to run for mayor?
Originally, I wanted to, and I made this announcement at one of the fundraisers that I had when I was running for this council seat, that it was my intention to serve out all 3 terms, if the public was going to be so kind as to let me serve out all 3 terms. I was very privy to the manner in which the Kip Holden administration handled things. There was, with any administration, there's a lot to be desired. You've got a bureaucracy and things that need to be changed, and certainly there's problems that existed in our community for decades. If you look at North Baton Rouge for an easy example of, what they call deferred maintenance, which is really kind of just not ever going there and really
Kicking
taking
the
care.
can down the road.
Kicking the can for 40 years down the road. That's not how I like to do things. And then when this administration got in, it seemed like there was a whole lot of activity that either, 1, divided people, 2, spent money in other areas that weren't productive, wasteful spending, appointing people to positions that I mean, you look at the guy from Walla Walla, Washington, that was going to be chief administrative officer. The selection alone of hiring a guy from a town of 33,000 people and then not doing your diligence to find out if he indeed had the degree that he claimed that he did.
Well,
I mean, things like, and that's not it, but that's just, there's so many of those type of things, and it seems like when this mayor opens up her first year State of the City address with an apology, I appreciate that and taking ownership, but I don't see any change in behavior. The mistakes keep coming. So I feel like in working in the community and hearing folks, especially when it comes to blight, and you're going to hear from another councilwoman who worked on blight years ago, but the blight's still here, that's for sure. So working on that, on working with the district, with investigators with the district attorney's office on things in the hotel motel ordinance and understanding how blight is key to a lot of crime happening and seeing nothing really being done with that. And as I am a Republican, I'm a moderate Republican, but that means I want to spend money efficiently, not stop the things that we need to fix that ail our community, but spend money efficiently to fix it. If you don't attack blight, there's so many other things that have crime, quality of life, public safety, things of those nature, and economic development across parts of our parish. That's not happening. There are things that I keep. You mentioned me being on the council. I passed, with obviously with council's help, hotel motel ordinance that that our district attorney sitting over here knows very well about. That's to stop human trafficking, child sex trafficking, and drug trafficking in our hotels. We got it passed with working with the Hotel Motel Association. They came up and said, we need these regulations. It's the only thing I've ever seen passed through council, not only unanimously, but with a standing ovation. And this administration took 16 whole months to build a static website page that just needed you to put in the name of the hotel, the address, how many rooms you have, who's the owner is, and who carries your insurance. How many people were victims of human trafficking, child sex trafficking, or other crimes happen in these hotels in the 16 months they dragged their feet getting done. And again, that's just one example of not doing the job. It seems that just enjoying having the job is enough to satisfy this mayor.
Let me ask you this, and I saw this with my own eyes. I attended several council meetings at the end of the year and the beginning of this year.
Did that have anything to do with the airport?
It did.
We'll bet.
And as the pro tem said when Jennifer Rocca took the interim appointment, he said, "Are you ready to join the circus?"
Yep.
And that being said, I noticed there were at least 4 occasions when you brought an item to the floor that would have directly benefited districts other than your own in North Baton Rouge.
Certainly.
In the newly constituted North Baton Rouge Economic Development District.
Yeah.
And they were literally blocked by the people whose districts would have benefited from them until somebody else came in with the same idea that happened to be a little closer geographically, shall we say, and then it was a grand idea.
Well,
how do you get past that?
Well, as council getting past that, I think it's going to come up with personalities and how personalities get along. Now, you've got a member of council, and I'm not going to have to say any names. Anyone who follows council knows that there's at least one council person who's very vocal that, I mean, even if you think you're getting along with that person, it could change in 30 minutes or less, and vehemently change that quickly. So there's not a lot of trust in being able to work with somebody, to negotiate, work politically with somebody who's going to flip-flop on something like that just because of someone whispering in their ear when they leave and not leaving an open conversation. I mean, I worked with Erica Green on the hotel motel ordinance. She's an attorney. I thought it would be great for her to get involved. She loved the idea. So we worked with the Hotel Motel Association. That was a great cooperation right there. I worked with Lamont Cole on increasing the fines for blight and then adding public service as a alternate punishment for blight junk, trash, and debris in your yard, because some people can't afford the high fine, but they still have to respect the fact that they've got to keep things cleaned up. And then this is not because I'm going up there telling them to clean it up. It's because their neighbors are calling 311, asking them to clean it up, and they deserve to have their quality of life as well. So I worked with Lamont, I worked with Erica, I worked with all the other council members on a number of items. But there are some items that, the tire shredder in particular, that get mischaracterized because someone wasn't in on the ground floor in talking about this. And almost by design, every level of government has seen how this particular council person acts and says, we're never going to get this done if it turns into a shouting match every time we get in here.
Well, there was an accusation made at one of the meetings that was basically racial in nature.
Imagine that.
That you
How many of those
you
have
wanted to
been-
send this, you didn't want to put it in a quote-unquote white neighborhood. You want to send it to a black neighborhood where they were all going to get bitten by the mosquitoes that would be generated by this
Okay.
and have disease.
Isn't there some cash that was going to come into that district as well as a result
Well,
of that?
jobs.
let me say
Jobs.
this. I specifically work with Diane Baum, who's a disenfranchised business entity, who's worked with the airport. She's registered. This is a female-owned business, and her hereditary makeup is she's Vietnamese American. So when it comes to DBE participation, that box is checked, and so often that box needs to be checked when working with the city. So the mosquito abatement and rodent control folks didn't want to have, those are the people that would be the recipient of the grant that came from Center for Disease Control, who want people to be healthy. That's their job.
Yeah.
Give it to Louisiana Department of Health, whose job it is to want people to be healthy and work towards people being healthy. To give to the mosquito abatement and rodent control to control mosquitoes and rats to keep people healthy. That's the three agencies where the money trickled down to. And then this was not going to be a situation in which any mosquitoes were going to grow there, because all these tires are going to be shredded within 30 minutes. That's in the cooperative endeavor agreement.
But
the other
they
thing
knew that, and they painted the picture that these tires would be sitting there whole with pools of water and the mosquitoes breeding.
Look, that same councilwoman posted on her Facebook page that I owned an asphalt company, and if I do, they're putting the checks in the wrong account.
I know a former councilman owned a concrete company.
Yeah, well, and again,
That's close.
That's
No
it's
cigar.
different, but I don't have any ownership in any of this, and I certainly don't. Asphalt is an industry where concrete's in direct competition with
Yeah,
asphalt,
I know.
by the way. But to get to what you said, Kevin, I spoke with Diane Baum, owner of Baum Environmental, the private entity that was going to come in and operate and assume all liability, assume the costs of operating this machinery, maintenance on the machinery, replacement costs if needed by the Bobcat to put the tires in, security, pay for all the electricity or diesel fuel or anything that they needed out there. And she's going to create 14 jobs the initial first year. And I put her on the spot at council and said, I need you to promise me that you're going to hire people close to wherever this
You had a 2-mile
goes.
radius written
2-mile
Yeah.
radius of where this was going to go. And here's the thing. Average income of those people who would work there would be $45,000. The average income in District 2, where this would go, is $28,000 and change, and that said on the record by the council person of
Wow.
District 2.
And yet-
That's quite an increase. And she has said in meetings, I don't care, get it out of here. I hope it leaves the whole parish. And I don't think it
So
has-
she doesn't even really know what's good for her district.
In this case, I think what she's doing is detrimental to her district. We had a meeting at the mosquito abatement and rodent control where she was going to tell everybody how bad it was and explain how bad it was. She had some studies from the University of Wisconsin that talked about chopped up tires being on playgrounds and all this kind of stuff, and that had nothing to do. I mean, it had the word tire in it, but it had nothing to do with what the progress of this was. The vast majority of people who showed up lived in 7805, who I've ridden around with and picked up tires with, because that's the environmental injustice, is all these tires, and that's the tagline she keeps using. In this case, when it comes to tires, the environmental injustice is the tires that are in the ditches and dumped.
The ones that are abandoned and dumped illegally.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what we're aiming to clean up. we've got, again, 40 years of this mess to get on the other side of until we can just be merely processing the vast number of tires every year. People change their tires every year. We want to make sure that those tires are taken care of. But we also have to get taken care of tires that maybe were dumped out in a field in 1979 that are still sitting there. We need to get those too.
Let me ask you this question, and I think this comes down to the heart of anybody running for office right now. I think there has been a racial divide in the electorate politically in this parish probably for about 8 years.
Are you talking amongst the citizens that don't have any problems speaking with one another and sitting at a table and breaking bread with one
No,
another? Are you talking about the politicians who live off of
And
creating
I'm
that
also
environment?
talking about political activism and urging
Okay,
people
yeah,
to vote
I
and
can
all
understand that. Yeah.
And what I wonder is what's going on in the country right now, does it make it harder for a white male candidate to run against two black female candidates in Baton Rouge? Does it make it hard? Is there an automatic supposition that this is a white male, this is what we need to stay away from?
If that's the case, it does me no good to dwell on that. I need to keep pushing forward. I need to keep trying to work for the betterment of all people in this parish because we've had Democratic leadership for a while and the problems haven't gotten fixed. So I don't think ideology, you talked about race, but people are also going to pin this, I'm a Republican, so they're going to pin that on me. I'm much more moderate than even a lot of Republicans here even care for, and it's been told to me. But in the long run, ideology does not tear down condemned buildings. Ideology doesn't fix broken windows or dig ditches out. So to me, really to be stuck to a philosophical platform of a political party or focus just on race, where has that gotten us over 40 years of the
Identity politics
deterioration?
doesn't really help much of anything.
No, it's
Doesn't build
a
anything
shell
up.
game to get you to go look over here rather than the problems that exist on the block you live on.
Matt, question for you, and this is from Pat Engleg, former police chief here in East Baton Rouge
Good morning,
Parish, and
Pat.
the head of CALIF. He says, what's the biggest issues facing East Baton Rouge? Pick three.
Well, I would tell you the first one is really attacking blight. Now, we can go back and we can talk a history lesson of Tom Ed McEwen, Operation Takedown. We can talk about that. Maybe that got going for a while, but obviously it didn't solve the problem. But in the long run, we need to be very aggressive on blight. Specifically, I was talking to a police officer and a social worker in the same place last night, and they were talking about, one, the social worker talked more about quality of life, danger to children. The police officer was talking about crimes happening in blighted and abandoned properties. The police officer said the number one thing to reduce crime, especially in North Baton Rouge, is to tear down these blighted and abandoned buildings. That's not to say to cut people out of their due diligence in going through the proper condemnation process, but be aggressive in tearing those buildings down when they get condemned. Because if you don't, within 3 years, they roll off being condemned, and now you have to go through this whole process again of wrapping up parish attorneys and investigators and money to go do a condemnation process again. We're never going to get ahead of the 10,000 plus structures in North Baton Rouge that the people in North Baton Rouge have reported to 311 that they want to have remedied. And there's more than just that.
Let me ask
We're never going to get to that when in the budget there is a line item of only $160,000 to tear down condemned buildings.
Are you joking, man?
And then you've got
And I'm
maybe
guessing you're looking at 10K plus each.
12K, and that's for a stick-built, about shotgun house size that's elevated.
Wood frame home.
I'm not talking about a brick home slab on grade.
Or
I'm
an
talking
abandoned commercial property.
Oh my God, when you start getting into that, when I went to Martin Luther King Center, because Lamont Cole was having a blight, this is what got started me working with Lamont on this, increasing the blight fines. The folks that lived up there, Lamont put this together. I go up there because I was interested in hearing what people had to say. He had folks representing, the parish attorney's office, people that code enforcement and things of that nature. I walked up. I've known Lamont a long time. I walked up and, man, how's it going? And he says, man, a lot more people have showed up to this than I thought. We're going to have to break these groups up into groups of 4 after we have this, presentation, because if we do this, we're going to have a lot of people wanting to talk, and we're not going to have enough time. So let's break these folks into groups. So I had a fourth of the group, and they mentioned the Brown Velvet Creamery building at the corner of Plank and Choctaw. The lady said, this got condemned when I was in the 8th grade, and I have gray hair now. What's going on with that building? So I asked Gary Chauvin. He says, Matt, you're looking at a $1.2 million estimated tear down and haul off cost.
Oh, my God.
Lord.
That's 10 years. And I do know we get federal grants, but the federal grants that I've heard so far are less than $300,000. So you're still looking at less than $500,000 a year to attack a problem. And the reason why I make this such a big deal, and to answer Pat's question, is if you can tear down a blighted and abandoned property, it can no longer be the attractive place where a crime can happen. It turns from a dilapidated building into a mowing liability, which that mowing liability can be turned into a summer job program. And once it's torn down, it's much easier for someone to imagine building another structure there, or have a realtor come in and instead of saying, look, I know it looks terrible right now, but use your imagination and maybe get economic development. I think North Baton Rouge is the sleeping giant of economic development in this parish, and to clear all that blight out, that's obvious to the folks that live there, and anyone else who would go there, they'll point out those buildings.
So
get that out of the way, and it's the rock that knocks down 6, 7 different birds. So blight is the start.
Okay, so blight is one. Let's go for second biggest problem facing Baton Rouge.
I think crime, obviously crime. When you look at, I got information from the police force when I had a heated email exchange with the police chief asking for non-fatal shooting numbers. Someone got me some information, and some of the information that I got as sort of collateral information is we've got shot spotter technology. And a number that shocked me. Of course, the non-fatal shooting numbers, you've got shootings that happen that don't hit anybody that get reported. You've got shootings that happen that turn into homicides, unfortunately, and we've got ones that equally unfortunately, but not as bad, injure someone and they survive. Then you just got shots fired. Our shot spotter technology, which is from the FBI, and this doesn't read fireworks and car backfires.
Oh,
this
no.
can tell you almost the caliber of the weapon.
It can tell you the caliber of the weapon.
Caliber of the weapon. The stats that I saw from January 1, 2019 to June 6, 2019, in the 15-block area, unless it's changed, that shot spotter technology exists, there were over 7,300 shots fired.
It's like a war zone.
I talked to police officers, and they're like, people in other parts of town don't understand the number of shots that are fired. I go work with the folks that live in an area that will tell me about, why aren't these kids in school? They seem young. Why aren't they in school? And I said, well, where did you see them? They said, they ran with a chopper through the neighborhood. And I didn't know at the time what a chopper was, but it's an AR-15.
Yeah.
These are kids she thought were young enough to go to school that were running through her neighborhood. And her
Carrying a semi-automatic
first
weapon.
thing was, why aren't these kids at school? So we've got to, and again, part of that, creating that mowing liability, which really turns into an opportunity.
Come on in, Tara.
That really turns into an opportunity for summer work. Trying to get folks to have something to do, that many different things to do. But this is one where if we can create a program where we put a lien on the property, and that lien is, say, $100. It's pretty close to what code enforcement is going to charge people that don't mow their property. And I'm talking, a lot of these cases, you've got out-of-town owners of property who own vast numbers of property and don't live next door to it and see it every day, which is why they let it get into the condition that it's in.
Out of sight, out of mind.
We also have people here in this town that own multiple properties that should know better, that don't do anything about
We
it.
have slumlords.
If
But
you
we
don't
definitely
mind,
do.
Yeah, if you don't mind my interjecting here, when you talked about that old brown
brown
velvet,
velvet,
why does the property owner not have any liability for that tear down?
They do, but you have to force the hand. And that's the problem. It's up for sale right now. You've got it up for sale again. And here's
Who's going to buy it when they're going to have to immediately invest $1 million to tear it down?
well, here's the other thing. If the municipality tears it down, now you've got the cost of the property plus making right the $1.2 million lien that increased the cost of the property as well. So those financial items are what's holding back a lot of larger scale redevelopment in North Baton Rouge. And now we can talk about, I've met with a lot of attorneys who've come in out of town to try to create a financial instrument so private money can be invested in having a municipal bond, because it moves money from taxable to non-taxable status, but the investment is in the municipality, and those be dedicated solely to the addresses. Like, say, you have the Brown Velvet Creamery bond, people invest in that, and that money is set aside directly for, because that's what they've invested. It's not tax dollars. It's private equity money to create a financial instrument to attack those. You get the Brown Velvet Creamery building and maybe throw in 12 houses that are around that area that on their own wouldn't attract investment.
Let me ask you this. If you are elected mayor, you have been very vocal in helping to support and create the North Baton Rouge Economic Development District.
Mm-hmm.
If you are elected mayor, how much control does the mayor's office have over that subdivision? And there's a reason I'm asking.
Sure, go ahead.
And it's because what I have seen with my own eyes at the council, and what I have seen for years, is that I don't care if it's federal money or state money, private money, there has been a long-standing tradition of that investment gets diluted by elected representatives from that area that want to know what's in it for them.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I've talked to, look, I have tremendous confidence in Jerry Jones Jr., who's the head of the Economic Development District.
Eminent guy.
He is great. He's got a lot of experience, but he's saddled with people who will show up to these meetings and just want to argue and want to slow things down and make things more of a political statement than a practical statement. Because I'll work with Jerry, and I'll try to find a way to help Jerry out. And then there's a lot of things. Redevelopment of certain parcels of property wouldn't have to go through. Tearing down condemnations wouldn't have to go through a North Baton Rouge Economic Development District.
I've seen it with
this
my
would
own
be an
eyes.
asset that would be turned over for them to get people to make an investment in.
When the airport, 25 years ago, brought in a jet maintenance facility that would provide 45 jobs at an average pay of $75,000 a year.
Sounds like a great idea.
And also provide a school affiliated with BRCC and Southern to train mechanics for those similar jobs.
Even better idea.
And that was coming in with federal money with a very small state match
Sure.
and an even smaller airport reserve match. And the elected representative, who is not serving now, said, yeah, but before you build that, I want you to build a community center in this neighborhood.
Sure.
I said, can't do it. It's FAA money. It's got to be used on the airport and we actually had to get a representative of the FAA to fly to Baton Rouge to look this person in the face.
To stop
and
the
say,
shakedown.
Can't, and I'm sorry. My impression is it's fairly rampant in this city. And it's a shame because the North Baton Rouge redevelopment idea is a great idea. A great
agree.
transportation avenues in North Baton Rouge. It could be
agree.
a booming second city.
I think not even necessarily a second city. I think it is, think about the history. And, you've got folks that have been here a long time.
Well, I
and
mean,
have
second
thrived.
city center is what
Okay,
I
I
meant.
got you. Okay, I understand that, what you're saying now. But of course, think about the transportation connectivity that you've got up there. The Brown Velvet Creamery building. You got a rail spur. You know how expensive it is to get a rail spur at a private location? That's pricey.
And it's
pricey.
operable.
Yeah. You've got Choctaw, Plank, easy access to I-110, and by extension, not too far, to the river itself. That's a great place to do something. Or no one would have put the original business there. Maybe the product that they made needs to change the direction, but still the connectivity and its placement in the geography would make it a great place to have some other business there.
Matt, I'm going to ask you a question. We got about 2 minutes
Sure.
left,
Go ahead.
but I'm going to hit you with the 800-pound gorilla in
Sure.
the room. Let's talk about race relations, or more specifically, I think maybe racial politics is the way to go. If elected mayor, what can you do to help improve the environment? We've clearly got people who all, when the chips are down, we all get along, no matter what the color of our
Absolutely.
skin. But there seems to be a lot of political difference based on the color of skin.
I would, as I've done throughout my time on the council and even before, going out and working directly with people who live in the communities and talking with people in the communities directly and making myself as easily accessible to folks to answer questions. I get texts all the time about people who've got a tree in their yard and can I get energy to take it down? And the person happens to be an African-American person in another part of the city. But we have a relationship. And I try to build relationships with everybody that I work with. And across the board, that's what I would do. You have got to build trust. And you can't build trust by years and years and years of failed government, which we have. People don't trust the government, so you're going to have to deliver on promises to build trust with people. And I've tried to do that. When I was at that meeting in the Martin Luther King Center, and the guy was yelling about, the fine is too small, it's the cost of doing business. I said, give me 3 weeks and I'll have something before council. I did. I don't make these promises that I can't keep.
I have one more question before we let you go. At council meetings, you sit next to Councilwoman Wicker.
I do.
It seems that you all have forged a friendship,
Yeah.
and that you also oftentimes vote alike on many issues.
We do.
Is it going to be tough to get into a campaign against your seatmate and your friend?
No,
And I'm going to ask her the same question, by the way, when she comes on.
Well, the thing is, I would imagine in a debate scenario, someone may ask me, why are you running against the current mayor? And I would throw that over to her and say, well, why don't you ask the other Democrat that's running from the mayor's own party, and share that, just watch her, to have her take the lead in talking about why she thinks that the mayor, I know the processes that I'm standing for that need to be changed, but I throw it to Tara Wicker because we're in certain ways, we're in the same boat in the goal we want to do to have a better city. I know she does.
Matt
But
Watson,
the method in which we do it, I think is going to be vastly different.
Councilman Matt Watson is running for mayor. We will hear from him again as we get a little closer to election time. We thank you for being with us. We
I
wish you the
appreciate it.
best of luck.
Thank you. It's nice
And
to
what
see
we're
you
going
all
to do,
again.
folks, is we're going to take a brief break here and retool all this, get a cup of coffee. Coming up next, the other candidate for mayor who is with us this morning, 3-term Councilwoman Tara Wicker, will be joining us in about 3 or 4 minutes. So everybody stay where you are. We'll be right back. This is the Morning Exiles. Glad to have you here.